What do you do when the kids are partying too much? Well, you create a new ordinance, of course. The ACLU is not too happy with it, but reportedly there's a lot of confusion about what the city of Providence has done to crack down on the kids who just like to party. You know, the college kids who've made the entire neighborhood section around PC and beyond a little tough to live in some nights. We'll talk to a city councilor who proposed the latest ordinance and a member of the apartment association to explain the whole situation tonight. How are you? Glad to have you in. My State of Mind here on MyRI TV at 11:30 and Fox Providence at midnight. If you were looking for the show at 7:30, well, whenever CBS, follow this, whenever CBS has a football game, the Jeopardy and Wheel blocks on Channel 12 move over to MyRI TV, thus preempting the 7:30 version of Dan York's State of Mind. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We get a lot of viewers now late night. A lot of them. Fox Providence. Woo! Thank you for watching. Let's go to the rundown. Well, here it is. Here it is, and boom! It's nothing but reading for anybody who calls himself a journalist or quote, or even a quasi. Even I got to do a lot of reading. Interns got to do a lot of reading. I bet you even Jess will do. No, forget. Here's the headline. She's not going to do any. A huge trove of 38 Studios court docs finally released, and yes, they were. Here's Jared's explanation.
This day is an unprecedented one in this 5-year-long saga. Now tens of thousands of pages of 38 Studios documents are in the public domain, ready for open public examination. Colleagues are receiving DVDs containing more than 60 depositions, exhibits, motions. As has been said, this is the closest thing to an independent investigation Rhode Islanders have gotten into a business flop that left them on the hook for millions of dollars. Who knew what? When did they know it? Do the documents align with what has been said publicly? Critical questions that we hope will soon be answered. Again, those DVDs being distributed. At some point, all of that material will be posted online at a time and address to be announced.
Yes, and so you caught me looking at my phone because I'm about to tweet out a picture of the fellas over there in the conference room. Tim and Ted and who else is over there? Walt, Dan, Steve, they're all in there reading documents. It's funny, over at the radio station today, Matt Allen, weeknight 6 to 9 on WPRO, buddy of mine, he's looking at the documents, and I just got off the air, and so I said, so what's in it, what's in it? He says, dude, I'm on the first deposition of the first guy. Look, and when you look at the files, it's going to take days of cramming to find out the story, unless you've got a source. I thought Jared's story was kind of profound there when he said it's the closest thing to an independent investigation. That's the point. We need an independent investigation, and I'm sure these documents will only serve to create momentum for that, not provide all the answers in lieu of that. Speaking of profound, I could not take my eyes off the screen today as we watched Pope Francis talk to Congress, headline the Washington Post. Yeah, big on the immigrants, and of course it's kind of fascinating how the national correspondents kind of package these stories. Watch.
Pope Francis received a standing ovation as lawmakers welcomed him to the heart of the U.S. government. He is the first pope to address a joint meeting of Congress.
You are the face of its people. They are representatives.
His speech focused on topics familiar to these lawmakers, including climate change and religious extremism.
A delicate balance is required to combat violence perpetrated in the name of a religion.
On immigration, Francis called for greater understanding of those who come to the U.S. looking for a better life.
We must not be taken aback by the numbers, but rather view them as persons, seeing their faces and listening to their stories.
The Pope concluded his speech with a call to protect the family and to focus on the nation's children.
God bless America.
You know, it is a heck of a conversation, the Pope's visit now on day 2.5, right? I will tell you, even the reporting on this is interesting. Yeah, he talked about climate change. Yes, he did talk about immigration, and his tone was interesting. I wonder if the Republican primary season will be affected by the Pope's tone on immigration. But even our reporter from CBS didn't mention that he made a speech about life and protecting it at every stage of development, his word. That doesn't even make the cut in the news. So news bias and reporting about the Pope's presentation is always something you've got to be wary of as a consumer. Best way to cut through it, watch the speech, find it, and decide for yourself. Next item. We're not going to have truck tolls passed, it seems, this year. The headline, Nick Mattiello, the House Speaker, tells the Providence Journal that he doesn't think they're going to be able to get it together. This is the one place where Nick Mattiello is actually making some sense. It hasn't happened often, unfortunately, at least in the latest round of PawSox and other developments, the 38 studios and his apathy for an investigation. But at least he's dragging his feet properly on a truck toll proposal that Gina Raimondo, our governor, wants desperately. Even Nick Mattiello, the House Speaker, was wise enough to say, you know what, we need some kind of economic evaluation as to how this whole thing is going to go. And well, they commissioned a study which was due to have a report back on September 14th. Now, maybe it's back, but the Raimondo administration either hasn't fully read it, figured it out, or decided what to do with it. As the clock is ticking, the fall is running through, and it doesn't look like we'll have a special session. So breathe easy, no legislation until next year. Time to fight it. And speaking of fighting it, the group that's been fighting the Pawtucket Red Sox move to 195 for a stadium, having a little fun now. Projo.com headline, they're going to have a rally. In fact, they had a rally. You see this program in the evening. I produced this program prior to 5:30 in the afternoon when this group is getting together to kind of, in my words, spike the ball in the end zone at the State House. They're going to be playing We Are the Champions and all that, and they've got a theme according to David Norton, who is their ringleader.
When the deal was killed, the media, almost all of the media outlets had referred to it as dead. And I took that a step further and said that it was double dead because we didn't only kill this proposal, we have a formula that would be successful in Rhode Island for killing any proposal that tries to use taxpayer money to build a stadium.
You know, it makes sense that people are angry, and these folks, you know, use social media, appeared on this show, and that's my guest check, my guest chair, appeared over there, to battle this whole thing. But the real thing that's got this thing all stuck is the way people feel about government, 38 studios, private-public partnerships, taxpayer money, all of that. These folks are so excited that they helped to kill the 195 deal through public sentiment that they're now blind to the idea that eventually public and private money will have to be merged and a stadium will have to be built if the PawSox remain in Rhode Island. Sometimes you go too far. And unfortunately, when you have a vacuum of leadership like we have in Rhode Island, the pendulum swings way too far. Union business or abuse of overtime? Dan McGowan broke this story. You want to know what's going on in the city of Providence? You got to follow WPRI.com and Dan McGowan's work. Union officials were paid to picket Mayor Elorza's event. Okay, that's one way to say it. Here's the Eyewitness News story behind it.
Providence firefighter union members picketing an event Mayor Jorge Elorza hosted last week. Some called out of work and used hours from their time bank, which can be used for union business. It also forced callbacks, Commissioner Stephen Perry estimating about $3,100 in overtime.
Taxpayers paying union leaders to conduct union business has to be revisited. That needs to be taken out of all the contracts.
There were two people on time off. This time off was part of a grievance settlement that the city could have objected to, but they agreed to it. So they gave us the time off with no restrictions. We elected to use it that night. We've used it on many other nights. It's really nothing unusual. The only difference is that Elorza was embarrassed that night, and he's decided to make an issue of it.
Kind of a Blues Brothers protest there. Look, while I don't like the idea of the firefighters taking time off to do union protests and then time and a half circling in to pay for it, the truth of the matter is that, once again, I got to side with the union and Paul Dowdy, the last guy there, because it's in their deal. And alarmingly, the Commissioner of Public Safety, Stephen Perry, told the press this week that he wasn't even aware of it. So the city's criticizing these union guys for doing something that the city has agreed to do. It might have been a prior administration, but a good idea when you take over the city is to kind of read stuff. Just my thought. All right. Your state of mind's important to us. 228-1886. Tell me about the Pope. Tell me what you think on anything. We got so much to cover when we come back that we'll skip your feedback for today. We'll get right back to it in the next program or so. In the meantime, what do you do with those unruly college kids? Stay with us. You know, I have to tell you, I laugh not at the residents of Providence who are affected by college kids partying, but I remember my days. There was a paddy wagon that took a bunch of my guys away in the ghetto, as we call it, at the University of Dayton back when we used to have our fun. So it's not a surprise to me, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to you who might have gone to college. But it's an ongoing dilemma, and it becomes a serious quality of life issue. And here's the headline that causes us to talk about it. The council in Providence has okayed limits on students in houses. And here's a little background piece Eyewitness News did on the controversy.
Landlord Bob D'Amico is outraged.
I could rent to five gang members. I could rent to 5 drug dealers. I can't rent to 5 straight A Providence College students, simply because they're students.
The ordinance is in response to many parties all across the Providence College and Rhode Island College area on streets with single-family homes. The ACLU says instead of discriminating against students, the city should enforce current noise and party ordinances.
College students who are having parties, who are unaccountable for those parties, are going to continue to have those parties and be held unaccountable. So it really is about stepping up that enforcement.
Okay, so is the current law okay? Is the new law needed? Joanne Ryan is a council person in Providence, and I thank you for coming and explaining this. And Keith Anderson is on the Providence Apartment Association. Keith, thanks for contacting us.
Thank
and
you. It's
talking to us
Fernandez.
about it. Oh, it is?
Yes.
Well, see what that says?
Haha.
Aha. So I'm gonna change your name right now to Fernandez.
If he's smart and handsome, you can keep it.
All right. Take 2. What's the issue first? Then we'll talk about what the legislation proposes. Then we'll talk about the arguments for and against.
Sure.
How do you see that? How many apartments do you have up there, by the way?
In that particular area, I do
area?
not. But in Providence, I have about 32.
Wow.
So.
How's business?
Business is good. Depends on how you look at things. But I'm in it for the long term. I'm not in it for a short-term gain, and it's not the only thing that I do. So I'm okay with some of this stuff. But to this ordinance, so the issue is, as you asked, certain areas in Elmhurst are having an issue with the noise and the partying and the disturbance that's occurring in an area where typically this should not be happening. Now, we have zoning classifications for a certain reason. This is a residential 1, meaning a single-family house. And what's been happening in this area is that there have been instances of people buying these single-family houses, moving more and more into this zone, and renting them by the bedroom to students because that's a profitable way of doing it.
Right.
So that's been encroaching further into areas where people are trying to raise families. People have bought houses. To them, it's their piece of heaven. They would like quiet after a hard day's work, and the issue of noise then started encroaching into the zone.
Okay, I think that makes perfect sense. Your take on the problem, Joanne, before you explain the ordinance?
On college partying in that neighborhood has gone on for a long time. Back in 2006, there was a study commission. Out of that came the orange sticker ordinance or rule. It wasn't really implemented until.
No, if you party too hard, you get the
you get an orange sticker on the house.
The
it's
scarlet
a warning.
letter.
Scarlet letter. You
Yeah.
get a warning. You get a disturbance again. The police show up. There's a $500 fine. Although it was passed into 2006, it was never implemented until 2012. So the partying has been a problem for a long time. The problem is many of those multifamily homes, the core partying happened in the R2, R3 residential 2-family or residential 3-family zones. In the past few years, it's now moved from that area into the single-family neighborhood.
So is it, as Keith is explaining here, is there a violation occurring with the actual acquisition of these homes where people who are not planning to live there are just planning to rent there and are literally violating what is the spirit and or the actual zoning law?
That's an excellent question. I just heard on the intro, Mr. D'Amico, I believe he's an attorney, had said he can't rent to he can rent to 5 drug dealers, but not 5 A students. The reality is that's the 5 drug dealers is a violation. Providence has a current zoning rule which basically says no more than 3 unrelated people can reside in a single unit. So if Mr. D'Amico is renting to 5 drug dealers, he would be in violation, as anyone would.
In the residential zone 1?
Citywide.
Citywide.
Oh, citywide.
Citywide.
Okay, so let me see. So you proposed legislation that limited it to 3.
I'm limiting it to 3 in
and it passed,
residential.
correct?
It passed. It
right.
overwhelmingly passed.
10-3, okay.
We had, just to back up a bit, when I'm a new councilwoman in Ward 5, representing Elmhurst and Mount Pleasant and sections of Manton. While I was running and soon after I got elected, a number of neighbors came to me and asked for relief. This problem's been going on. I grew up in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are from the neighborhood, so I'm well versed in the problem. We immediately started to meet with city officials, zoning officials, the law department, to try to get our arms around what the problems were and how utilizing existing rules and ordinances
so
and laws.
In sum, as efficiently as you can say, the summary is, it's been getting crazy. You came up with this idea to limit no more than 3 people.
Correct.
Or is it 3 college students?
It's college students. We limited it to college students because that is the root of the issue.
So the person who's got a house with a pro forma of 5 now thinks they just got their revenue cut by 60%.
Correct.
And you're saying, guess what? You shouldn't be renting them anyway.
Correct. So
is that the essence?
So this ordinance only affects college students, no more than 3 college students in an R1, which is a single-family zone. Single-family zones.
How many of the single-family zone homes have been purchased by people who intend to do business in them rather than live in them?
That's
not
a great
many.
question.
We're getting ahead of the problem for the first time.
Right, exactly.
It's
not been a lot, so I represent.
No one ever says that. Thank you. My favorite counselor.
Right.
Okay.
So I represent the Providence Apartment Association, which is a lot of the landlords in the city, and 99% of our membership has 0 issues with this because it doesn't affect 99% of the landlords. We buy multifamilies.
So the P2 or L3 or whatever, in other words, the 2 and 3 zoned area, there's no effect on this. What's the beef?
Correct. So if it's a single family in an R1, that's it. It could be a single family outside of an R1, you're free to rent. It could be a multifamily in the R1, you're free to rent to students. It's only a single family in an R1 zone. It's like you living in your house and having a neighborhood in suburbia and having somebody come, buy a house, and stack students right next to you. I mean, that's just not right, and it's not fair, and I think a lot of landlords agree.
Yeah, you know what, let me pause and come back and hear what the counselor has to say. A lot of debates sometimes happen when people don't understand what the underlying truth is. We'll be right back.
Right.
Oh, we're giggling here about the experience of college students. The city councilor and the Providence Apartment Association leader, I think, are making a lot of sense. And frankly, right now, I think a lot of people out there are confused as to what the council was trying to do, what the issue was, and how to resolve it. We're talking about the occasional unruliness for the kids from multi-colleges, by the way. They're in the Elmhurst area, not just PC. So to be clear, if people buy in Zone 1, which is supposed to be family housing, you can't have more than 3 college students
in a single family.
In a single family house. I don't even know why you don't prohibit, but you're making progress. You're getting.
This is our first step.
Well, I think what you're doing, you're telling me, because there aren't a lot of homes that have been captured, so to speak,
Correct.
by entrepreneurial landlords. You're sending a message that, guess what, your pro forma is going to be a lot shorter, so don't buy. right?
That's exactly correct.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. What are you doing in zones 2 and 3 where there are landlords legally renting to multiple kids?
Thank you for asking.
Okay, what's happening?
We're working together. Keith and a number of people have been pulled in. The colleges have been pulled in. The council president, the law department, our zoning officials meet on a regular basis, and we're collaborating. We're working with the police, and we're putting all of our tools together. We're collaborating to identify the problem houses. There's a lot of good kids that live in these neighborhoods. They're not all bad. There's a few houses that cause us...
No, but no kid is going to sit inside sucking their thumb when the thing starts to grow and go. I mean, it's against human nature. You know, you may not have started the party, you may not even gone to the party, but when the party ends up being 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 in the neighborhood,
out of control.
You're going to come outside and go, hey, what up? And all of a sudden you look like you're attending.
We receive calls from students that lived in houses, let's just call them party houses. They called the police and said, there's a raging party in my house, I don't want to get in trouble. Come and help.
And what about penalizing the institutions? What about going to the, okay, where are you at, Rick? Where are you at, PC? Where are you, J&W? Guess what? You're going, bang, involving the schools in this discipline.
We are involving the schools in the discipline. The reality is they have their own discipline models. The important thing is when police respond to a house, they don't know what students they're dealing with. So we're working to break down the communication barriers so that when police respond to a house, they know it's a Providence College house.
Well, if they don't know right then, there's a way to certainly find out. It might take a half a day, right?
But it takes time.
I have to make this point, though. Councilman Ryan and Council President Aponte are not anti-landlord. In fact, these guys are the guys that champion a lot of the stuff that's going on with the landlord tax issues and so on and so forth. They're not anti-student. They're not anti-business. They're addressing a small problem. This is one part, one way of affecting some sort of change that, you said it right, sends the message, and then we enforce other stuff, but it's not anti-business. You know, they champion landlords in the city council leadership. And as the head of the apartment association, I guarantee you that these are the folks that have been addressing our concerns. They brought us in right from the start, you know, talked to us and crafted this with us. So the landlords are not against them. There's a small portion, and even they are not bad people. We continue to work with them.
All right, we'll follow the progress as we go. Appreciate your take. Counselor, 30 seconds on this firefighter situation and arbitration. I'm very worried that this mayor, not doing his homework and taking some bad advice, is going to run the taxpayers into a really big bad bill.
The city council as a whole is keeping our eye on the situation. We're watching it very closely. Obviously, as you just pointed out, it could be a big number. It's not constructive of me. There's an ongoing litigation, so it would not be constructive of me to comment. However, we are watching it.
The mayor says something stupid about it just about every week.
We're watching it closely. Our job is to monitor the budget.
You're good. You're new?
Yes.
She's good.
She's excellent.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Final word when we come back. We'll follow that whole situation with the partying and the ordinances in the city of Providence on the radio as well on WPRO as it develops. So stay tuned. I think that made it clear. Hey, listen, tomorrow night, one more thing. Bill Reynolds, who everybody knows is the columnist at the Providence Journal, will be my guest. His work with the book on Chris Herron earned both Chris Herron and Bill Reynolds an award that you'll hear about. In fact, tonight they received their award. You'll see the show that we produced last night, tomorrow night, and it's a phenomenal conversation on the work and on Bill's work as well. So we'll see you then. See you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRL. Thanks for watching.